Hi, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Unfiltered
Yes,
podcast.
that
Sid, how's it
number we
going?
can
How's it
count.
going?
Um,
We can. How was
I'm
your
good.
day been?
You know what? I'll tell you what. Okay, this has nothing to do with my day, but last I
Okay.
want to talk about this real quick because I'm so
Okay.
embarrassed. Last
What?
episode, I noticed. So I edit the videos. That's why the editing sucks. And I remember I was sitting and I was watching and I was going over it over and over. And there are
Yeah.
certain times when you'll be talking about something and I'll be listening, and all of a sudden my face just I stare so blankly into the camera. I look like I'm about to kill someone. It's like they'll be talking like,
Oh
and
my
that's why it's so great to find your purpose and to love God. And I'm just like, I don't know what my problem is.
We're murders in disguise.
Oh my
Full
gosh!
of the-
Like for anyone
Oh my
watching, I
gosh, that's
apologize.
hilarious. I never
don't know.
noticed that, but
I don't know. Well, God, literally, it's like you watch the last episode and it's like, oh yeah, wow, that's really interesting, Emma Grace. I totally agree with you. Wow, that's great. I mean, it's
oh my gosh.
God, I'm scared myself.
Oh my
So,
gosh, that's
I'm
great, Sid.
I
Well, I
don't
didn't
know
think it
what
was
to
weird,
do.
but
It's like I don't know what to do now. Like, what do I do with my face when you're talking? And I just sit there and I'm just like do I smile?
that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. I feel
Uh-huh.
like I nod my head a lot. Like you'll just be talking, I'm like, like I'm
You're right.
a
You're
little
right.
horse over here, like nodding
it's
along.
it's a
We're
work in
our
progress.
worst critics.
Now that we say this, everyone is gonna be like pointing it out, like you do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So comment below if we're actually right.
Yes, please comment. Please comment. I need someone to talk to.
We need comment.
Um,
Sydney, today is a fire subject. I'm so
yes,
excited.
it
You wanna
absolutely is.
tell the audience of like 12 people what we're gonna be talking about today?
Absolutely. Today's topic, gamers, we are going to be talking about open-mindedness, which is something that
Open-mindedness.
is very important to me because I feel like in today's culture, there's a lot of you're right, I'm wrong, or right, I'm right, you're wrong. See, this is why I'm always wrong. and I think it's something that we can expound on today and really like
Right.
just dive into. I have so much
Yes,
energy
dude.
today.
I'm
I
so
didn't get any
excited.
sleep.
Good. Oh no.
Apologize
High
in
on
advance.
caffeine. So we have like subcategories in this, whole subject of open-mindedness because there were just so many points to hit on. I was like, Sid, we gotta we gotta have some order about
We
this
gotta
thing.
write this down. We went a little a lot of
Oh wow.
notes.
Ooh, neat handwriting. Anyway, the first topic is or subcategory should I say is the movement of boundaries. And I kind of wanted to expound on this a little bit.
Yeah, she was talking to me about this earlier, and I've never heard of this
Yeah.
before. So I didn't know this was a thing because I live in a cave.
Yeah.
But I don't
Well,
know.
and I don't know if even there's a name to it, but it's just something that I've seen. It's like a pattern I've seen with a lot of people, or should I say like the Gen Z generation. It's just it's like a pattern, a new trendy lifestyle, whatever. I'm going to set up a boundary here. You're not going to cross it. I'm setting up a wall all around me to where I become so self-sufficient. Like there's nothing wrong with self-love. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. I mean, God created a beautiful, beautiful thing when He created you. You should love yourself. You should be confident in yourself. We're not saying that. But
Mhm.
to an unhealthy point, to where it's debilitating not only you, but it's debilitating others from even getting close to you. It really sets you're really setting yourself up for failure. And I know I've had examples of this, happen with a lot of my friendships where I may actually need something, but someone's got a boundary or a wall so high where they're like, oh, I don't want drama. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. So we're going to set up walls. We're going to set up boundaries and they can't be crossed because, at the end of the day, I'm working on myself as a person and building myself better. And if you are not going to assist me in that, if you are not going to be beneficial to me as a person, then you are no longer in my life. You're canceled out. We're going to talk about cancel culture here in a little bit. Sydney's going to expound on that. And it's almost like the same aspect, but in a low key way, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
where the person is doing that to everyone around them.
Yeah.
And I think like that's something that we really need to be careful of in our generation is, you know, we of course, focus on, living your best life and growing as a person, but you have to have people in order to do that. You have
Mhm.
to, of course, you know, cling to God. He's the source of life. He gives every breath, but he's created a universe and he's created people to help you along the way and to learn from each other, to share from each other. I think it brings us to our next point we wanted to talk about was, conflict, or what was it? Conversation without conflict. Was
Yeah.
that the point?
Um,
I don't know if you want to expound a little bit on that. And I think it really does melt together as a topic.
oh, I definitely agree. And about the, you know, creating boundaries, I just like to say real fast. I mean, there are unfortunately some people in this world that, it's very hard to open up to, and I completely
Mhm.
understand that. I mean,
Mhm.
you have these people in your lives that, that love you. They say that, they want the best for you. It's hard to kind of differentiate that sometimes. And so, I mean, that might be a reason that you build your walls. I mean, why do you
Mhm.
build your walls in the first place? I mean, maybe it's because you're, insecure. Maybe it's because, this person didn't treat you correctly. Maybe it's because you need a drink of water and you can't talk properly on a podcast. Why did I decide to do a podcast?
Oh my gosh.
But excuse me. But
You're good.
I think it's very I think it's very hard sometimes to try and differentiate who you should open up to and who you shouldn't, which
Mhm.
is why we create walls. And I'm not saying I haven't done this before either, of course, but
Oh yeah.
it gets to a certain point where there's hair in my mouth, and it gets to a certain point where you have to stop and you have to think, okay, who is listening and who isn't.
Mhm.
Um, and that is going to help you figure out which walls to keep up and which ones to take down. For
Right.
me, I remember, when I had a lot of walls that I had built up around myself, I pushed out everyone that loved me. How did I tell that they
Mhm.
loved me? Because I could talk to them about things and they wouldn't get defensive about it. And I think that's
Mhm.
one of the main problems with open-mindedness is it's
Yes.
so hard to find people that truly love you and that are truly there to support you if they're
Mhm.
not willing to listen. And that's probably one of the
Yes.
that is a really hard topic right there.
Woo,
How am
that's a
I going to
hard
get
pill
into
to
this?
swallow.
Yeah, no kidding. When you have conversation without conflict, okay, well, what does that mean? First of all, let's get into that a little bit. Hey guys, Vsauce here. It's it's difficult to talk to someone to figure out whether or not someone is truly interested in your better self
Mhm.
if you can't talk to them without them getting so defensive about their own beliefs.
Mhm.
Let me give you an example of that. I mean, I know I've done this to people before. Is I've had certain beliefs in certain things that I'm very, very passionate about. I talked about in the last episode
Mhm.
how I've been very a little too passionate about things sometimes, and how I kind of force my own opinion on that person without really listening to what they've been saying.
Mhm.
And that is probably the worst thing you could ever do to anyone ever. If you
Mhm.
cannot sit and have a conversation and listen to what they're saying, you need to stop and take a look at yourself because I can promise you right now, you are not helping them. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Okay. Dr. Sydney, degree in associate mental awareness and psychology and physiologically. Um, it's you have to realize if you are forcing your own opinions and your own beliefs on someone that just wants to talk,
Mhm.
then I'm sorry, pal, but you got to step away
Oh
from that
yeah,
for a second. I there
it's
was
so
this, there
true.
was this one time I was and of course politics are everyone has a different opinion on
Yes.
politics. I mean, we're different people. I mean, that's
Mhm.
totally perfectly fine. But there was this one person I was talking with, and they asked, hey, do you want to go out to get ice cream later? Do you want to go out for an outing? This was in a group chat, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, sorry man, I'm still in quarantine. This was probably July of last year. And oh, this poor guy, he spent so much time. He wrote back a novel as to why
No.
he didn't believe, I should be
Wow.
staying inside, why he thought it was stupid, why he thought, all this
Oh my
stuff.
gosh.
And, I remember reading this and thinking to myself, like, okay, I mean, dudes, dude's clearly got some strong beliefs. I'll give you
Right,
that. All
right.
right.
There you go.
But
Yep.
I think it was interesting how I had said no to going out to like a picnic and they jumped on me. And of course, I'm not saying that I've never done the same to someone else before.
Mhm.
This is just the best example, the most recent example I have, I think.
Right.
Because I remember I sat and I thought, they want me to see their viewpoint so badly, but they refuse to have a conversation with me about it. All they do is they spit and they yell and they throw things at you instead of listening to my side of the story.
Mhm.
And I think that's
Exactly.
that's where the problem lies, a good amount of the time is you when you create these beliefs for yourself, when you have these morals, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it gets to the
Mm-mm.
point where somebody tries to ask, hey, I have these different beliefs and I wanted to sit down and talk with you about them, and it
Mhm.
goes from, oh yeah, I was really interested in this, I wanted to know why you think this. Oh my gosh, you're telling me that you think this? You are
Yes. There's no word to describe
Jesus,
you.
I'm going to pray for you because clearly there is something wrong with your head.
Yes.
Which, by the way, has happened to me before. It's that whole idea of like, you know, you are wrong. I am the only one that can be correct
Yes.
if with anything
Exactly.
and everything, and that is
Mhm.
such a narcissistic point of view. If you
Yeah.
think like that, I'm just look, man. Okay, look. I've been meaning to talk to you about this, okay? Um, I know it's hard, okay? But your father and I have decided that it's time we come clean. It's we God, what is this? We really do think that, it's time to move on. It's time to stop being so self-centered and think of what the other person wants,
Oh my
not
gosh,
just yourself.
that
Get your
yeah.
head out of your love you,
Yeah.
sweetie.
I love it.
And
And there we conclude the podcast, guys. Thanks for I'm just kidding.
thank you for watching. And I gotta go. I got. But
No, but it's so true. The culture of you can't even have a conversation with someone without there being an argument because there's no room in your opinion to sit back and say, "Hey, like I understand." There's no well, doesn't even get that far. There's no
exactly.
understanding. We can't
There's
even
no
try to be understanding.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. You don't even
Exactly.
try.
Yeah, and I think it all stems from not listening. And I know that seems like such a fundamental thing, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a good listener," but actually, 80% of people are not a good listener. I remember being a kid and my mom, whenever the few times that we did get into an argument, or a better example, with my brother. We got into arguments all the time when we were growing up because we're close to the same age. And I mean, we were even like fist fighting on the floor at some points because just kidding, we're not. I love you, Brayden. But there have been times where like literally we might have okay, say he has an argument, he's trying to tell me his side of the story, but in my mind, I'm not listening to what he's saying. I'm already like countering my argument to him of why he
You're
is
just
so
beating
wrong,
him up. Like
Yeah, like inside of my mind, like I'm like, oh, he said that. Well, let's this. While he's trying to explain to me his heart on this matter. And it's like, all growing up, and that's something that we really had to learn as kids. And that's something that our parents really helped develop in us is that, don't be so quick to throw the first stone, but you have to listen before you make conclusions. And that's
yes,
something that a lot of adults like, and me being an adult now, it's something crazy. And I think that a lot of my friends, we grow up together, but it's something that they really have cut off relationships with me because they don't understand how to do this principle. And it's like the minute that they disagree with me, it's over. Cancel
hmm
culture. We've talked about that. Um, and I know you're going to expound about that a little later. And also being the first one to throw the stone. And I think that's such a
yeah,
crazy thing. I remember the story in the Bible of the woman in the temple, and It was when Jesus was walking on the earth, and all the Pharisees were there, and this woman had done horrible things. And as accustomed to the law, the Pharisees, I mean, they had to stone her. This woman had to be put to death by a stoning for what she's done. And Jesus shows up on the scene, and I love what he says. He says, "Let him who is without sin be the first to throw the stone." And none of them threw stones. They all just walked away. Why? Because none of us are without doing something wrong in our life. We live in a sinful world. We're sinful people, and so therefore, I think something that Jesus was really trying to teach, and something that, especially in this culture today, I think is so missing. Never judge from a distance when you haven't walked in those shoes, or
Exactly.
even taken time to listen to what those shoes have felt like, because you'll
Yes.
never be that person. Um,
Hmm.
I know, Sydney, you've said you've experienced, things in your life where people are just so quick to judge. I mean, I think everyone's experienced that,
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
you know, they can't understand why, you know, like, why
Hmm.
are you not doing this? And you're like, well, I
This is
have my
a
reasoning.
exactly. There was this one time I went to a it was a convention for martial arts, and I went with a couple friends of mine, and this was a time in my life where I was very afraid to eat. I was scared of food because I
Hmm,
have food allergies, and I was just so terrified of eating something because I hadn't taken an allergy test in a long time, and I was so scared that if I ate something, either it would be worse, it could be better. I mean, I just didn't know. And
right.
my a friend of mine was getting me food, and there was just something about it. I was like, you know what? I can't eat this. I'll go. I literally told them, I was like, I'll go get McDonald's
Yeah,
later. And
right.
I very much appreciate the kind gesture, but I would really prefer to just eat some other time. And they got me some food anyway, and they put it down in front of me, and I was panicking. I had a little bit of an
Yeah.
anxiety attack, and I
Oh
mean,
my
like,
gosh.
I was so freaked out. I mean, like, I just, and I was trying to explain to them, I was like, look, I really appreciate, I know you're trying to make a kind gesture,
Yeah,
but I
right.
just can't, I'm just so afraid. I just don't, I just don't want to eat that.
Hmm.
And they were like, "Well, what are you allergic to?" And I was like, "Well, I'm allergic to tree nuts." And they were like, "Well, this has sesame seeds in it, so I think you're fine with sesame seeds." And they looked up on their phone, "Is sesame seeds a tree nut?" No, it's not. And so they were like, "You can have it." I didn't feel safe, and I didn't care how peer pressured I was. I did not
Yeah,
eat. Um,
right.
I just couldn't do it. Like, and
Hmm.
I think it was a year and a half later, I finally got another allergy test. My blood work came back and told me that I was allergic to sesame seeds.
Wow.
And it was that sort of, it's that sort of, you don't understand. I mean, and of course,
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely been the one to throw stones before. I mean, there was
Oh
a
yeah.
group of people in at my school that I definitely I mean, I was a jerk to. I mean, like, I'm just going to be completely honest. Guys, I'm sorry. I was really mean to you guys. I mean, like, they were, they did a whole bunch of like really weird, like they were super into like what do you call them, like crystals, and like not crystal meth. Let's make that very clear. But they
Yeah.
were they were very much into like crystals and like the power of the universe and like all that sort of stuff. And
It's really
I
weird.
did not understand. I mean, it was strange to me. I didn't understand it. Of course, now I'm like, you go, pal. Like, you do you.
Yeah.
Lord knows, I mean, I can't harness the power of my dog, let alone a crystal. But I mean, I just, it was, I've definitely been the one to throw stones before, but I've also been the one
Right.
to receive them. And you have to
Hmm.
go into a situation understanding that you do not know what this person has been through. Neither do I. I don't know what you've been through. Emma Grace, I don't know your life. I don't know your story. I don't know the reason you think the things that you do. The people who are listening right now, I don't know what you've been through. I mean, you don't know what I've been through. And that's why I can't judge you, and that's why you shouldn't judge me. They're all judging me, aren't they,
Hmm.
Emma Grace? That's me
I
putting myself in the
don't
internet. I
know.
mean,
They might need to
that's
be.
I mean, it's granted, but it's 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 that sort of. I mean, hey, look, if you disagree with me on the things that we're talking about right now,
Hmm.
you have a full right to judge us. I mean, like, just being straight up with you now, if you disagree with
Yeah.
us, go
Right.
ahead. I mean, if you
Right.
disagree with someone on something and it's very I mean, you just cannot see, you don't, granted, you don't have to go us and, start telling us like how wrong we are. Okay. I mean, like,
Right.
that's a little much. But I mean,
A
seriously,
little
if
too
you
far
disagree
there.
with us, I mean, it's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of not judging someone from where they're coming from. And I think,
Right.
with the
And
Pharisees is
even
what you were talking about, Emma Grace, with, the
right, yeah.
Pharisees and how what Jesus was saying. I mean, I think that's exactly what he was trying to get across with that story.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. And I mean, like, even if you do judge, like you were saying, if you judge, go ahead, make my day. But, even when you do that, you have to be open to listening before you finalize the judgment. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
can't judge based on no, you know,
Evidence. You have to
evidence,
have some
right,
sort of
exactly.
grounding.
Thank you there. I
Mhm.
couldn't think of the word. But you have to understand. You have to have a full understanding before you make your final call or final decision. But definitely, the main thing we wanted to hit on was don't stand on the sidelines and judge. If you're right there in the trenches with me and you're fighting with me and you know me, yeah, judge all you want to because you're right there with me. But if you're
Mhm.
standing on the sideline and you're just screaming and throwing stones, then don't judge. I always go to my boyfriend's soccer game like I went last night, and it's funny to me the amount of people on the sidelines screaming like, "You should be doing this, you should be doing this," but they're not in the game, right?
Mhm.
And so it's funny to me because, like, okay, the player in the game sees it so much differently than someone that's just watching. And the same thing, goes with life, We we don't know because we haven't been in the game and played it just like I haven't been in and played it just like you or vice versa. And so that's something that's
Exactly.
super crazy, and it kind of flows into the topic of cancel culture, and people are literally, I mean, it's such a prevalent thing. I'm going to let you talk about
Mhm.
that because I'm not as enlightened in that as you are, but I don't
Oh
know if you
gosh.
want to go ahead and explain, like, exactly what that is and why there are problems in it of open-mindedness.
Well, I definitely think that, cancel culture is it's driven by the media. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying that there's anything wrong with the media. I mean, if you agree with it, whether you don't, I mean, that's for you to decide, not me.
You're right.
But I definitely think that there are certain um how should you say, certain morals, certain
Hmm.
uh aspects of how you think, how you learn, how you act, and you fada 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 fada, and that's
Right.
how it ties into cancel culture. Cancel culture is one idea of how the world should be,
Hmm.
and a lot of people, at least that I've seen in cancel culture, have been just screaming and they holler. And granted, this is not everyone, I'm sure. And I think cancel culture, at the beginning was something for genuinely bad people. So they could kind of, it's like, oh, you're canceled. You actually did a bad thing. Like, hey,
Hmm.
Phyllis, murder is bad. That I agree with, okay? But
Right.
when you start, bashing someone and saying that you're canceled, trying to get rid of someone's career as a whole, just for having a different viewpoint of the world, a different religion, a different aspect on, I mean, like, I kid you not. And of course this wasn't big news, but I saw this argument that this group of people had gotten into as to whether or not um what was it, whether this sort of thing was appropriate to wear or not. And that happens
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah, yeah.
in Christian culture, and
Exactly.
religion. It's what is
Conservative
appropriate to wear
culture.
versus
Mhm.
what isn't, of course. And that's something that there's a huge argument of. I mean, there's argument of how to act as a person. There's an argument as of how to dress, how to act publicly, what your manners are. I mean, there's arguments
Mhm.
for everything. I mean,
Yes.
everything. And and
Everything.
that's one of the problems with cancel culture is they see things from one specific point of view. If anything steps outside of their field of vision, you can't, it's unaccepted. And
Mhm.
I feel like for a lot of different celebrities that I've seen that I don't necessarily follow or like, or maybe I do or maybe I don't, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Mhm.
if you have a different point of view than they do, then you're ridiculed for it and
Right.
you get stones thrown at you. And I think that's a very immature way of seeing life, personally,
Mhm.
because I try to be open minded and I try and listen to what somebody else is saying. And I feel like with cancel culture, one person says, without any evidence, without any factual, whatever, Hey,
Yes.
you, hey, get him. And
Yep.
everyone just like a mob, they just
Swarms
attack this
on them.
person. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And that's just the end of it. And I mean, like
Mhm.
that, and you look at certain cancel topics that have gone on in, throughout the history of the internet, not that it's been around for that long, but I mean, drama is everywhere. And,
Mhm.
you read through the evidence and you see what's been going on, and you realize that the person that was supposedly in the wrong, the canceled person, was the one that was actually in the right all along. And I'm not saying this
Mhm.
happens with every single topic, but I'm definitely saying that it happens enough for people to stop,
Oh yeah.
take a step back and look at, okay, what is actually going on here, instead of just listening to
Mhm.
one person say, hey, they did a bad, let's get them.
Mhm.
What
Yep.
was the bad? Well,
Right.
they just did a thing, so get them.
Yeah.
And
All right.
that's it. um
Yes.
and
It's
I think a lot of it derives from narcissism. you
mhm.
know
Yep.
I think a lot of it, is cancel culture. Why do people even care? Why do people care? Good question. I think a lot of it derives from the insecurities that they have about themselves.
Mhm.
Cancel
Yep.
culture, I mean, the people that shout and scream on Twitter, don't have Twitter, I hate Twitter, and this is why.
Same.
But it's they put themselves out there on the internet
Mhm.
screaming and bashing people for all sorts of different reasons. And it's they have so many insecurities about themselves that this is their sort of outlet, to it's their outlet to express themselves about how they truly feel inside on other people. If that
Mhm.
sentence made any lick of sense at all, I have no idea
Yeah,
if it
I
did,
do.
but
I agree. I think it's almost like an outlet of where, they can feel better because they're making
Mhm,
someone look worse than they are, you know? They're making
mhm,
someone look, at a lower stature than they feel like that they are. And that's the
exactly.
whole thing. I feel like jealousy has a play in this. Bitterness
Oh
definitely
yeah.
might have a play in this. What if, maybe your parents really did raise you bad? Maybe you're still struggling from the divorce that your parents got, or whatever it may be, a bad childhood situation, a bad marriage, a bad relationship, whatever it may be,
Mhm,
that maybe makes you have an insecurity. Um, maybe Sarah said that she didn't like that pink skirt in middle school. And so to this day, you will wear nothing pink, much less the pink skirt.
freaking
And she,
Sarah.
I know, right? But that's the
What a
thing. We
jerk.
we let our insecurities really build who we are. And honestly, we let peers and other people who we maybe look up to in the back of our minds create a version of ourselves that's not really even reality, which to me ties all the way back to the Unfiltered podcast and what our message is for this podcast,
Mhm.
being real, being vulnerable. But something
Yes.
about narcissistic, characteristics are, vulnerability is the greatest fear because you build
Mhm.
walls around you to protect your self-esteem. I know you've had an example with this, where someone has created such a narrative that they themselves even believe this. I don't know if you want to give any examples. I know you had a few that you have dealt with before.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I mean, I mean, I talk about this kind of stuff. I talk about open-mindedness, and I really want to dive into these subjects because I've seen it before. Granted, I'm 18. I have to put this disclaimer on every episode. I'm 18. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I definitely think that I've seen enough narcissistic behavior to understand that. I mean, cancel culture, for example. I mean, when they sit and people, I mean, cancel culture, it's on the internet. Why do you think it's on the internet? People are on their phones. You can't see behind a screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't know what I look like. You don't know how I act in
Hmm.
person. The phone, the internet, I'm getting really preachy,
The
is
filters.
their
I'm just
wall.
kidding.
Yeah, the filters. I mean, it's their wall. You know what I mean? That is preventing people from seeing that my voice is completely destroyed today. Excuse me.
Oh, it's so true.
Seeing,
Just kidding.
sorry about that. It prevents them from seeing, the actuality is a word,
Hmm.
thank you.
Yes, it's a
The
word.
the truth of, this is who I am. This is,
Hmm.
behind off the screen. This is who I am off the screen. This is what I'm actually like. I'm very insecure. I'm very, this and this and that. When they're on
Mhm.
their phones and you're on the internet and you're telling this to this person and that, or if you're dressed up nice, you're walking down the street, you see someone and you start making fun of them like that. I mean, it's a false image. It's a false reality. I say that a lot on this podcast, don't I? False reality.
Yeah, it should be the
Yeah,
word, you know?
yeah, the false reality. Welcome to the multiverse. But it's it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of people, they build the walls, which is what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode.
Mhm.
Your boundaries that you build on yourself and that you put up in front
Right.
of you so that no one can see behind. And those are the things that really prevent you from not only growing as a person, but realizing who you are.
Mhm.
The what is it, the memes that you see on Instagram and stuff. It's like me deciding which one of my 16
Oh,
personalities I'm gonna wear today. Like, honey, okay,
yep. Yep.
if you do that, I'm gonna be honest with you right now. You need to take a step back and do some self-reflection. Okay.
Yes,
Just being honest
exactly.
with you, okay? I mean,
Exactly. Yes.
it's you should know who you are well enough to know what is right and what is wrong
Mhm.
before, so therefore you can be open-minded about what other people have to say.
Exactly.
Insecurity, narcissism, it drives the whole I am right, you are wrong mentality. And that's the
Mhm.
opposite of open-mindedness. I mean, to be so close-minded that you can't listen to what somebody else has to say. I mean, it's such a hard topic to dive into because I mean, I've been there before. I mean, I know what it's like to have certain opinions on certain people and to, you know, sort of speak out on that a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
and to whatever extent you go to with that, but it gets to
Right.
a point where you have to stop and you have to realize, okay, what can I listen to? I'm all ears. And I think that's once you start from that point, once you realize, this is where I'm coming from. Now it's time for me to listen. I've built on myself.
Exactly.
I know who I am. Which,
Mhm.
by the way, if you want to hear more on that, go into our last episode about purpose. Thank you. Um,
Yep.
hashtag unsponsored. But if you want to, if you know who you are, you know what your morals are, you know what your grounding is. It's time for you to say, okay, I know who I am. Now it's time for me to listen. And I think
Yep.
that that's really, um, I think that's really
It's
the
foundational. I mean,
yes, it is.
it really is. It's
Mhm.
and I think, being in a place like that where you are have come to grips with your vulnerabilities or your struggles, um, your characters even kind of building off of what we were talking about in the last episode.
Mhm.
Who am I as a person? What are my mental skill sets? What are my mental strengths? And being okay with that to where you
Mhm.
can have, the open-mindedness to listen to another person and say, hey, maybe you are a liberal and she is a Republican or vice versa. And you are able to have those conversations, but still go grab pizza after because you know what? You're still a human being. You're still a person. I mean,
Exactly.
viewpoint shouldn't be like, oh, I am Baptist all the way, honey, and you are Pentecostal, so therefore we may not associate anymore. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
it's those little things that drive a wedge, and really, if I'm being honest, it's the worst representation of Christ that you could ever give to anyone because
absolutely.
yes, I mean, like you were talking about, at one point, I don't know if it was before this video, we were discussing it, you were like, "So many people have totally abandoned the golden rule." And I think, like, that's a good, like, conclusion of this episode is,
Yeah,
do unto others. And I mean, it sounds so simple and so cliche and just like, but it's so true,
it
at the end
really
of the
is.
day, yeah, it's like, where is that anymore? I mean, we don't see it.
Mhm.
Not in our culture, not in our generation. Kids are being raised from a young age to be a certain way. And I mean, we're really raising a culture and of what we complain about, we're being that same type of person as far as not being there, not listening, judging others from a distance, all of those things that create closed mindedness and create those walls. I mean, we're really promoting in this day and age.
Mhm.
And I think it's really sad. And I mean, but on the flip side of that, there's so much hope of, let's actually start. You start today. Being open-minded and
Yeah.
having the
Why
ability to
wait?
listen. Why wait?
Yeah.
Call that friend that you haven't spoken to in 45 years. Call her up and say,
Yes.
hey, Brenda, let's talk, because I don't care that you're a liberal and I'm a Republican.
Yeah,
You know what
Brenda.
I mean?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, those relationships that tear apart because, people have different viewpoints, people have different mindsets. I mean, it breaks my heart to see people go through that. But I mean, even when I go through myself, I mean, it's one of those hard things. Someone has to man up. Someone has to say, you know what? I'm sorry. This is what
Yep.
it is. I forgive
Yes.
you,
Yes.
and that's just, I'm just
Exactly.
moving on.
And
And
apology can do 1,000 things, let me tell you.
yes, not only, I mean, who knows if it'll make the other person feel better or not. I don't
Mhm.
know if it will. I mean, like,
Yeah.
they might still feel bitter, and that's something that you can't control. But I
Mhm.
promise you, when you go up and you apologize to someone and you say, hey, I know things happened between us. I'm sorry for what happened. I really would like to apologize and I'd like to move on. And I mean, I hope that things can get better. I mean, that makes you feel like $1,000,000. And
Mhm.
I still have relationships that I have trouble saying that with. I mean, like, I'm
Mhm.
I'm not saying that I've got it all together, you know what I mean? But
Right.
it's definitely, it's a freeing experience when you can
Mhm.
finally say, "Hey, I understand. We're both people, no matter where we come from, no matter what our backgrounds, and I apologize for how I treated you. You treated me unfairly, and
Mhm.
we can move on from here and live life without this burden on
Yes.
our shoulders anymore."
Yes.
So
Exactly. It's freeing to yourself when you can do that, and honestly, it's the best thing all the way around.
it is. It really is. Treat
Yes.
others the way you want to be treated. The
Yes.
golden rule.
Thus
It's golden
concludes the
for a
podcast.
reason. Yes.
There you go. There you go. All right, Sid.
Oh,
I mean, honestly, that really sums it up. I mean, wouldn't you say? Like,
oh,
just touching
absolutely.
the basics of open-mindedness.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I definitely think
yep.
that. I mean, seriously, walk away with it. If you walk away with anything, I mean, just
Oh
remembering the
yeah.
golden rule. That's literally, it's so simple. It's so effective. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So much
Also,
so.
don't do drugs. Don't be a murderer.
Nope.
Those are some good topics we covered.
Give hugs, not drugs.
Don't, yes, that, very important. Thank you. I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. All
So
right. You
yeah,
want to do our little outro thing that has now become a tradition and you have to do every
oh
time?
gosh. Yeah, I have to do everything. Why don't you do it? You do it. I'm all
Because
ears.
I'm
I'm
so
listening.
bad at it. I'm so
Oh,
bad
come
at it.
on.
All
Come
right, gamers.
on.
See you next time. All right. I don't know. I don't know. Did he take over? This is
That was so
chaotic.
good. And we'll see you dudes in the next video. Sayonara, gamers. Every time, huh? Every time. Oh my.
Every time.